Well, hello and welcome to Refurbishment and Renovation Secrets. So in these slides you'll find out what the builder doesn't want you to know. So refurb and renovation secrets. So when you're a builder or a contractor, etc., and you're asked a price for work, you're probably going to fit into one of three categories. So one, you want the work as you don't have much work at the moment for whatever reason. Two, you have some work, but you're not really bothered if you get this work, as you know, more work will come along. And three, you've got more than enough work, so go away. Depending on the type of person, they might give you a stupidly high price that you will not ask them to do the work. Or if you want them to do the work, they are laughing all the way to the bank. Or maybe they will not even entertain giving you a price if they're that busy. So you also have different time scales for availability of trades. Some could be available to start tomorrow or next year or anywhere in between. So when you get three quotes from a trade, there's always going to be a low price, a middle price and a high price. You're not ever going to get two people give you exactly the same price. So sometimes you will get two prices that are close. So depending on where they are in the scale, you can look at them. So normally you don't want the cheapest, as they could be desperate for the work and the reason could be they're not very good. If they're cheap but booked up for a while, you need to work out if they are cheap and available to start straight away, then unless there's a great reason, like the next job is ready or isn't ready, which does happen every now and again, then they could fit you in. So you've got this sliding sort of scale, so you've got price and availability. So you've got somebody that's a low price and immediately available. They're probably desperate for the work, unless you know them or you are desperate, then keep away from these because it spells bad news. Then the next scale, you've got medium. So if the price is medium and they're available immediately, so could have had work cancelled, always check why someone is available immediately. This is always ringing alarm bells to me if they're available immediately. And then you've got high price. Price could be why they have no work or they don't need the work and can choose when they work. So then you've got availability 1 to 3 months. So if you've got a low price is why they're booked up. Could be that if they're good and they a low price, they get plenty of work. If you can wait, then book them. So if you've got availability 1 to 3 months and they've got a medium price, could be a good one if the program and budget will allow. So as long as your time scales and the price allow you for this one, then you can book them in. If you've got a high price and they're available in 1 to 3 months, if you know they are good or they do a good job, they could use them if the budget allows and time scale allows. And then you've got availability 3 months plus. So if it's a cheap price is why they're booked up. Unless the program can wait, look elsewhere. Just all depends how desperate you are. If you're planning well ahead, then book these in. If you're wanting something immediately, then the program's going to suffer. Then if you've got a medium price and it's a 3 months plus waiting, then it could be a good one if the program and budget allow. It all depends if you know them and you've got the time. And then high price and 3 months plus, probably forget about these unless you have a specialist job to do and the program can wait. So you never know. So refurb and renovation secrets. So the main constraints on any project is time and money. If you know the contractor or they have come highly recommended, then you can use them if the money and the program allows. Always be concerned if someone is available immediately. Some are desperate for the work and others may not need the money, may just work part-time or when they want to. They may just cherry pick all the best jobs and price out the ones they don't want. Get to know them and find out what they have and like to do. Some contractors will just work on new builds and not be bothered about refurbishment work or renovation work. House bashing is a world of work, of hard work, and not for everyone. So with any job you have two options. One is price and the other is day work. So this means if someone gives you a price for the work, then that is the price you pay. You need to know exactly what you want doing to allow them to price for the work. It is important to put everything down on paper in a schedule of works to allow them to quote. Then you all know what work is expected and there is no uncertainty, as you will always want more and they will always want to do the least amount of work for the money. So day work can be used sometimes when it is impossible to give a price, like they have lots of bits to do and they can lose money with price work. So make sure you agree the rate and the time scale that is when it's required. So let's say you're looking at £150 for one day's work and list the items you expect to be completed in that day. I would always stay away from day rate or hourly rate, which you can use if the work takes less than a day, but make sure you list all the items you require completing. So out of the two, always use price work. So I had a job that was to build an extension as part of a house refurbishment. The property was bought for 160k and would have 60k spent to build an extension, then 40k to do the full refurb to a really good spec. The builder put in a timber ground floor and first floor joists. As all the services were to go under the joist to get to the island in the kitchen, the floorboards were not fitted. They were to be fitted after the first fix was completed. The second floor joists were fitted and the flooring was laid. Then the rest of the extension was built. When we were carrying out the first fix, I said to the builder, the floor needs fitting in 2 weeks before the plastering is started. He told me a story that the floorboards were on the first floor were fitted to help him build up the walls, and the ground floor was not in the original price. He only fitted the first floor joist to help him build the walls. Eventually we had to pay him £1,200 to get the floorboards laid, as we never itemised them in the schedule. The ground floor floorboards were never actually mentioned in the schedule, but then neither were the first floor floorboards. So make sure you list everything in the schedule to get the project completed. This was a massive learning curve for me, as I am used to having a quantity surveyor and a commercial team to list all the items and type the contract in a contract. It may be good for you to use a QS to help you. A builder will use any trick they can think of to get extra out of you, which is a shame, as they are right with you. You will give them repeat work. Any extras that you don't tell them about or were not known at the time. Unknowns. So this is a bit of a strange one, but you've got known unknowns and unknown unknowns. So just bear with me for a while. So two types of unknowns. There are known unknowns and unknown unknowns. Let me explain. So known unknowns. So if you're carrying out an extension and you need to dig the foundation, the architect will tell you that you need to dig a certain distance to get the foundation depth of 600 millimeters to firm ground or around that depth. You know that the depth is not really known until you dig down to firm ground and the building inspector is happy with the ground. This is known unknown. So you know that you don't know what the issue is going to be, that you could have to go extra depth. So as you know that the actual depth is unknown, so you will need to have an amount in your budget for the extra concrete or bricks and blocks to build from the extra depth. So unknown unknowns. So these are things that blindside you that you wouldn't have thought of. So I was carrying out another refurb and extension built on a 1990s bungalow. The demo was carried out, which involved removal of an internal wall. Then this was carried out when we realised the internal walls were made of straw. This was common in the late 1980s and early 1990s, as I had installed them as a joiner. So they were called Stramit walls, which basically it's compressed straw and then a sheet or cardboard just lining on the outside edges, wrapping it all in cardboard. And then you could plaster on them, you could fix them in a certain way, fix them, you could plaster them, and they look really good. And I imagine there's millions of them all to this day still stood, and nobody will know they've got straw walls. So the electrician had also worked on them before, so knew how to work with them. He's about my age, so he'd worked with them as a young electrician. So they had a hole running from top to bottom every 300 millimeters, so you had to thread the cables through those. You couldn't chop into these, run chasers or anything like that because you'd weaken it. So you basically had to thread your cables down these holes. So you had set distances, 300 millimeters. So you had to work out where your sockets and switches and everything need to be with that. So then you just cut out the back box and it was cemented into wall and then plastered. These days you'll probably use some silicone or something like that, something no nails, that type of thing. But back then it was a cement that you mixed up. So the electrician carried on with his first fix, and they told me that the external plasterboards were falling off when he chopped his chasers out. We realised that the plasterboard had been stuck to the wall using finished plaster instead of board adhesive. So this was back in the 1990s when it was built. So it was everywhere, all around the external edges, all the plasterboard was loose. So we had to remove all the plasterboard and replace them. This wasn't priced for originally, so this is an unknown, as you wouldn't have expected for this to happen, so you wouldn't have priced for this. This just blindsided us. So materials and labour. So you can get a builder to do the full package, which is supply the materials and supply the labour. The advantage of this, as they will have a number of different trades they can use, any good builder will be booked up for a while, so you might have to make sure you get your builder booked in well before you're about to start. So they're going to have a few, let's say plasterers, they're going to have a few plasterers that they will use. You might only know one, but they should have a few. Same with electricians and plumbers. They're going to have a selection that they can go through. So they will know where to get the best price for materials, which you might be struggling. They will project manage for you. Then you just need to check if the work is completed and to the correct quality for the stage payments. So project manage yourself. So you can get a different trades yourself and then you'll project manage the refurbishment. This can be time consuming if you work during the week and are only available to visit evenings and weekends, and basically no one is going to be there. You may do some work yourself or know a few trades who are mates and other recommendations. I'm not convinced about Checkatrade and other of these companies, as reviews can be bought for a price, like a discount for a good review. So I don't really believe them. I had a builder from Checkatrader and had a good score, but when it came down to the work, they didn't do the work to the correct order or in the correct order, which cost them money and time to alter and make good. Also, the quality of certain work was below standard, but they didn't accept it was. No one was checking the work and they relied on the lads to tell them when things were done. So the standout issues were, so the door frames were fitted after the plastering had been completed. Door hinges only chopped into the frame and not the door. Kitchen sockets above the worktop were out at the tile line and the worktop overhung. Too much, and then the wall tiled to this, then the worktop was cut back, and then you're left with wall tiles overhanging worktops and base units. So you to make sure that you get a programme for the works and have a regular agreed meeting to discuss the different stages. So in this meeting you need to lay out just a piece of paper different headings. So you've got milestone payments, stages, so we've got programme completion, so any extras, utilities, cost to complete, and any other business, and then next meeting date. You can add to this list, you can take away, but generally they're the things that you want. You need actions by whom and by when for all parties. So if the builder needs to do something by a certain date, put it down. If you need to do something by a certain date, put it down. Then email this at least the next day. Then you can go over this as the first topic in the next meeting to make sure that everyone has done what they should have done in the last period, whatever it is, weekly, fortnightly, monthly. Well, that is the end of refurb and renovation secrets. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Hope you've learned a little bit of something, a bit of knowledge, and use it if you can. So see you later.